Every tree and river in the forest has its own fairy creature associated with it, and the energy and existence of that particular element is what gives the fairy creature life. Some nature spirits come into being from an aggregate of things rather than a single element of the forest, such as all the trees and greenery for the leprechaun, all the fairy creatures for the fairy queen, and all the animals for the white stag. But one nature spirit is brought about by the cumulative energies of the entire forest. This spirit is known as the Forest King, otherwise known as the Leshy in Russia, Tapio in Finnish, the Green Man or Jack in the Green in English tradition, and Sylvanus in ancient Roman mythology. As can be seen by these few examples, the vast majority of the world's folklore includes a belief in a patron god or spirit of the woods, which comes in the form of a large green man composed of wood, leaves, branches, and other components of the forest. In his natural form, the Forest King has a very woodsy appearance, with limbs resembling tree trunks and hair and beard resembling leafy boughs of twisted tree branches. He stands as tall as the average tree and can often be mistaken for a towering oak if he is standing perfectly still. It is said that the Forest King is tall when inside his forest, but will shrink to the size of a blade of grass if he steps outside the limits of the forest that gives him life. This is probable because the Forest King derives his power and his sentience from the particular forest which he represents, and he will grow weaker and smaller the farther he gets away from it. When in his forest, however, he is robust and energetic with a wide range of supernatural abilities. Although huge and intimidating in his natural form, the Forest King can change shape at will and will often change into a less imposing form in order to interact with human beings. Unlike a lot of nature spirits, the Forest King is not shy, but will appear in a form that appears perfectly normal to human eyes, such as a wizened old man or a tall, hardy woodsman. It is not unheard of for the Forest King to appear disguised in this way, in order to learn the intentions of human travelers, to test their characters, or to play tricks on them. In addition to this, the Forest King can replicate the form of any creature in the forest, and so the hiker that chooses to trek through the King's woods can never be 100% certain that a given plant or animal is the real thing and not the Forest King in disguise. The Forest King often will disguise himself in this way in order to spy on travelers. The Forest King will spy on new arrivals because it will naturally distrust any creature which is not native to its woods. Human beings are a particularly dangerous intruder because of their intelligence and their tendency to defile natural places with their perverse buildings and technologies. Until you have proven yourself to the Forest King, you will not be welcome in the forest, because his existence depends on the sanctity and preservation of the forest. He has a proprietary interest in anything that happens to it. For this reason, it is certain the forest spirit will be aware of it if you intrude on the woods, particularly if you cause some kind of harm to it. A lot of woodland hikers who decide to seek out the nature spirits will notice that, to start with, they encounter very little success. In fact, the first few days or even weeks will usually yield nothing at all. Then, over time, you will find that more and more hints of spirit activity will appear to them. There is a good reason for this. Until you have first proven yourself to the Forest King, none of the spirits of the forest will want to appear to you. The king serves as their protector and father figure, and so if the Forest King spreads the word that you are still untrusted and still an unknown quantity, then the spirits of the woods will heed his word and will avoid you accordingly. Only in extraordinary circumstances will the spirits make themselves known to you before you have won the trust of the Forest King, and these will probably be small, insignificant creatures like a genius Loki or a pixie. And so, A complete knowledge of the Forest King and how to placate him is absolutely essential for any hiker who wishes to locate the spirits of the wood, because the Forest King serves as a kind of gatekeeper to all the forest spirits. How to make contact. The king of the forest has some kind of close association with the class of house spirits which are known in Russia as the domovoi. In fact, the Russian name for the forest king, the leshy, is alternated with the name borovoi, and this similarity in names in fact underlies a very close similarity between the two spirits as far as personality, magical powers, and temperament goes. For more information on the domovoi, see our other book, The New Homeowner's Guide to House Spirits. The domovoi is a spirit that resides in houses and spends all its time thinking about them, worrying about every danger that could possibly threaten the house. They are protective of everybody in the house, and will often resort to magic spells, intimidation, or even violence in order to preserve the sanctity and security of the home. The borovoi, or forest king, is exactly the same, except that his home is the entire forest. The borovoi's scope is much larger and his territory more vast, which explains why the borovoi is much larger than the domovoi. But in all other ways he is the same. He will protect his forest obsessively and spend every waking moment worrying about all the dangers which might threaten it. So worried is he about the forest that he lives in that he will often cast magical spells and install magical charms throughout the forest to keep out bad spirits or to alert him when something bad happens. Just as the domovoi casts spells to keep away house burglars or create charms to ward off evil spirits, so the borovoi does this in all corners of the woods. And so, given this hypervigilance on the part of the Forest King, contact should be fairly easy to do, and a respectful and gentle hiker will be contacted by the Forest King before long. How to befriend. Given their all-consuming preoccupation with the forest, it is actually quite easy to befriend the king of the forest. All you need to do is make absolutely certain that you do no harm to the woods or anything it contains. Just like the genius Loki, who will come quickly to trust you if you vow to protect the limited space that makes its life possible, so you can declare your intention to protect the Forest King's woods and then proceed to prove your intentions through gentle treatment of the forest spaces. This in of itself should be enough to set you on a good footing, and so, given a bit of time to prove your good intentions, win the complete trust of the Forest King. As really, imagine how rare this is among human beings. No one bothers to make a simple oath out loud that they will not harm the forest. Given its rarity, this small gesture by itself will be enough, therefore, to make you stand out and so gain the Forest King's trust all the quicker. This principle of treading respectfully and expressing your intentions to preserve the natural phenomena that gives this spirit life is in fact universal to all nature spirits. All nature spirits will more quickly trust you and so show themselves to you if you promise to preserve and respect that which gives them life and makes their consciousness possible. All nature spirits, even the most dangerous, will be more positively disposed towards you if you do this, and will probably come to trust you fairly quickly. The difference with the Forest King, however, is that he never does anything quickly. He will come to trust you, assuredly, if you follow the advice outlined above, but he will do so in his own sweet time. He will take his time observing your actions and mulling over your words. He will carefully consider your trustworthiness over days or even weeks, in the slow, thoughtful way that is characteristic of the Forest King. It is not necessary to remain patient and let the time pass without complaint. Rather, it is necessary to remain patient and let the time pass without complaint, never failing to observe complete respect for the woods. If you do this, it is certain that the Forest King will grant you his trust and give you his official seal of approval. Once this happens, the entire forest will open up to you like a flood of spiritual energy, and your hiking experience will feel ever more uplifting and magical. You will begin to notice that sweet tingling feeling you get when you are in the presence of fairy folk, and all the possibilities of the forest will now be available to you. The entire range of forest spirits will fan out before you like a horn of plenty. During the testing phase, the Forest King may well appear to you in some guise in order to observe you or test your character. If you encounter an unexpected traveler in areas so remote that you would never have imagined there was a human being for miles around, then it may be the Forest King in disguise. If you suspect he is the Forest King, try to remain calm and nonchalant. You are more likely to pass the test if the Forest King believes that you are taken in by his deception. So don't give yourself away. You should be as friendly as possible and fulfill any simple request which the Forest King makes of you, being as generous and courteous as possible. It is also important to make clear in all ways that you love the forest and will never seek to do harm to it. Even stating your intention to hunt, fish, or harvest berries might be enough to alarm the Forest King, as he may decide you are the type of human who likes to desecrate the woods and strip it of its resources. He might ask you a series of seemingly innocent yet leading questions in order to determine if you plan to do any of these things and in order to divine your purposes in the woods. Later on, when you have the Forest King's trust, he will treat you like any forest-dwelling animal and will permit any hunting, fishing, or harvesting activities that you may wish to partake in. However, before that trust has been gained, it is essential that you harm nothing, collect nothing, and touch as little as possible when hiking through the woods, in order to placate the Forest King. After you have gained his trust, however, he may still appear to you now and again in order to play a prank on you or amuse himself at your expense. But he does this to all the creatures of the woods, and so it is actually a sign of affection and should be taken as such. He may even appear to you in his natural form, now that he has grown accustomed to you and has lowered his guard enough to act naturally in your presence. Although the Forest King will not offer you any boons the way a leprechaun might, or offer you a chance for riches like the gnomes, it is essential to win over the Forest King in order to commune with the other spirits of the forest. What's more, the official seal of approval which the Forest King bestows on trustworthy humans is more than a metaphor. It is an actual energetic signature that is affixed to your aura, much like a fairy hex, but much more positive. This seal will appear to all fairies and nature spirits, making them see you as friendly and safe. Once this seal has been attained, the likelihood of any nature spirit appearing to you increases dramatically, so it is more than worthwhile befriending the Forest King via a few long, gentle hikes through the forest. How to offend. A great many fairy tales depict the story of a mysterious stranger who appears to be of mortal flesh, but is actually a fairy. This stranger makes a meager request of the traveler, such as a cup of water or directions to a particular place. Depending on the traveler's reaction, they are either blessed with good fortune or cursed with a horrible fate. These tales may well originate from the activities of the Forest King. This spirit loves to appear in such a disguise and devise various ways to test the character and trustworthiness of woodland hikers by means of such seemingly innocent questions or requests. The easiest way by far to offend the Forest King is to fail these tests and so show yourself to have a cruel, violent, or selfish nature. If you react rudely, violently, or in any way ungenerous fashion to the disguised Forest King, then he will brand you as an enemy of the forest and will do his best to drive you out. This brand is a very real mark, embedded into your soul, and will be visible to all nature spirits. Unlike the relatively weak fairy hex, the brand of the Forest King will last for a lifetime, and so you will be prevented from communing with any of the forest spirits for all time to come. The good news is, the Forest King brand only applies to his particular forest, So if you find a new woodland area to trek through, you should be just fine, assuming, of course, you have learned your lesson and treat the resident forest king of this new woodland area with due respect. Even something as innocent as declaring your intention to fish might alarm the forest king and cause him to brand you. So be careful when talking to the disguised forest king. Follow the instructions given above to the letter. Keep in mind also that the forest king may also appear to you as an animal or plant or other living thing of nature. So it is important to treat every bit of flora and fauna you encounter in the forest with kindness and respect, as anything you encounter in the woods might be some kind of a test. Another way to offend the forest king is to damage the forest in any way. When you are in the testing phase, then any infraction, even the willful destruction of a toadstool, will be enough for the king to brand you. When once you have gained his trust, however, you will be given more leeway. However, even then, wanton destruction of the woodlands will seriously offend the forest king. If you plan to build a house, try talking to the forest king, even if you can't see him. Try to plead your case and explain why trees need to be felled and why you need to build a house here. The king may not agree with you or approve of your plans, but the act of asking permission might be enough to placate the forest king and so help you avert his wrath. Given that the forest king has the entire forest at his command, and given the sheer amount of very real dangers which we all know can dwell in the forest, it can be concluded that an angry forest king can be very hazardous to your health. If he does not succeed in driving you out of the forest through fear, he can literally direct all the resources of the forest, every bird, insect, fairy, and beast against you, driving you away or propelling you into a river or an abyss. Anyone who finds your corpse would assume naturally that your death was a perfectly innocent thing, a mere animal attack, or a careless step on the hiking trail. When you couple these formidable dangers with the knowledge that the Forest King has a vast array of magical spells in his arsenal, which could easily bring death to even the strongest, most robust of travelers, every hiker will see clearly how advisable it is to avoid the Forest King's wrath.